What up, people? This is your boy, Mr. Noland, back in the classroom. Alright, today we're going to make a video on notes. This is called The Meaning of Percent. Alright, so our first blank. A ratio is a conversion. Alright. A percent is a part-to-whole ratio that compares the part to the whole of 100. You will see what we're talking about here in a minute. Okay, so it says, what are some examples of how you have seen percents used in the real world? Well, here at school, your grades are out of percentages. So grades are out of percentages. What about if you go shopping? Especially during sales. Sometimes you'll see like 20% off this item. So it could be money off an item. Okay. There's a lot more examples I can use, but I'm just going to go ahead and stop right there so we can keep going. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and fill this in. 1 out of 100 as a fraction is 1 over 100. 1 over 100 is equivalent to 1%. So if we look at my grid here, I have a 10 by 10 grid. So 10 by 10 means there's 100 little squares. If I have 1%, that means I need to shade in one little square. That one square represents 1%. 2 out of 100 as a fraction is 2 over 100. Which represents 2%. So how many of these small squares represent 2%? Well, I would have to shade in 2. Here's 1 shaded in. And now I have 2 shaded in. That is 2%. 3 out of 100. That is 3 over 100, which is 3%. Again, if you have 100 squares and you want 3% of them shaded in, that means I have to shade in 3 of them. 1 shaded in, 2 shaded in, and 3 shaded in. That represents 3%. Now I'm just going to follow this pattern. I'm going to go ahead and continue without talking because I think we can follow along here pretty easily. And there we go. We just finished filling in that chart. Again, 1% of 100 would be just 1 shaded in. 2% is 2 shaded in, and so forth. So if it asked for 28%, you'd have to shade in 28 of the little squares. Nice and easy. All right. The next part says 3 over 5 can be thought of as a ratio 3 out of every 5. Okay. We had a video yesterday that says to go from fraction to percent. There was 2 methods. You can do top in, bottom out, which is Tae-Bo, and you get your decimal, and then move the decimal over. Or method 2 says if you have a denominator that can evenly go into 100, so it's a factor of 100. Is 5 a factor of 100? Yes, it is. So I'm going to write an equivalent fraction. So to get from 5 to 100, what would you multiply by? Multiply by 20. So 3 times 20 would be 60. So I would have to shade in 60 of these squares. So I'm going to go over. I went over 6 spaces, 6 cubes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to draw a line straight down. So right here, this little box right here represents 60 squares. Go ahead and shade it in. Wee! Look at this. When I was a little kid, never could draw like this or color like this. Now I can because I'm a beast. Alright, well, there's 60%. Now on a table, this is what it looks like. On the bottom, or I'm sorry, on the shaded, you're going by 3s. But I'm going to stop before I get to the 100. I'm going to leave this one alone. So count by 3s. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. Now I'm going to stop right there. You can't put 27 here. I'm going to show why in a minute. On the bottom, we're going to go by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Now 3/5, 6/10, 9/15, 12/20, 15 25ths, 18 30ths, 21 35ths, 24 40ths. They all have one thing in common. They're all equivalent fractions. And y'all just told me up here that 3/5 is equivalent to 60 over 100. So I'm going to put the 60 over here. We didn't have enough space to fill in all the squares, so that's why we stopped at 24 and skipped to 60. Now I did skip this one thing. 60 out of 100 is 60%. Nice and easy there. Alright, go ahead and flip it to the back side. Okay, let's try the ratio 1 out of 8. So that means you would shade in 1 out of every 8 squares. Now, is 8 a factor of 100? No, it is not. So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and do top in, bottom out. This is the other method of going from a fraction to decimal to percent. Can 8 go into 1? No, it cannot, so add your decimal, add a 0. 8 can go into 10, though, one time. Since you have a remainder of 2, add a 0 behind it. 8 can go into 20, 2 times. Again, you have a remainder, so add a 0. 8 can go into 40, 5 times. Now from the previous videos, how do you turn a decimal into a percent? You take your decimal and you move it 2 times to the right. So 0.125 is equivalent to 12.5%. Remember, percents are always out of 100, so I'm going to fill this in. 12.5 out of 100 is 12.5%. Now, if you were to put this as a fraction over 100, to get from 8 to 100, you would multiply by 12.5. See how it doesn't go in there evenly? It gives you that decimal. That's why it's so hard to go from 8 to 100 here. That's why I would recommend doing top in, bottom out, getting a decimal, and taking the decimal, converting it to a percent. So we want to finish filling this in. So right here, if we have 100 squares, I have to shade in 12.5 of them. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So here's 10. The first row is 10. But it says I need 12.5, so I'm going to do 2 more. That'll give me 12. And then I have to do half of another one. And there is 12.5% right there. I'm going to go ahead and finish filling this in. The bottom is going by 8s, so let's fill it in. 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, 64, 72, 80, 88, 96, 104. If anyone ever wants to challenge me in multiplying your 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s, 10s, 11s, or 12s, bring it on. I will dominate. All right. The next piece says, think about it, write about it. Well, guess what, guys? Y'all get to use your brains and think about it, and then write about it. I already pretty much gave y'all big clues on this one, so y'all get to think about it and write about it. All right, guys, have a great day. Bye.